wasting money on cures. Forgot how to fix myself. They say that time is free. Then why is it so precious? Oh, I'll save memories in my head, like Polaroids on walls. They remind you to look ahead. Time is running out. Time is running out. Lately I've lost my track. I've sailed the deepest seas, hoping to find something to bring back better times. Oh, I'll save memories in my head, like Polaroids on walls. They remind you to look ahead. But time is running out. 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 Time is running. Time is running out. But time is running out. What if my best days are over? They can't be over. They can't be over now. Time is running out. What if my best days are over? They can't be over now. Time is running out. Time is running out. Time is running out.
Evening, everyone. It's Jim here at Tutor You. Welcome to the latest in our series of informal panel discussions around delivering T-level management and administration. And I'm joined tonight by 4 panelists who are here to debate some of the issues, what's on their mind at the minute. But also, if you wish, if you want to pose any questions or ask anything about either getting ready to deliver or delivering the management and administration T-levels, please feel free to post them into the comments section on the Facebook group here on the live video. And of course, feel free to introduce yourself as well. Talking of introductions, why don't I ask our panelists just to give us a few seconds to say hello and where they're at with their T-level journey, so to speak. Who wants to start? Poppy, do you want to start us off? Left to right?
Yeah, no worries. Hi, I'm Poppy, teaching the T-level since September 22 in a rural secondary school, actually, to sixth form, but in a secondary school setting. Like I said, since September 22, that's obviously the T-level management administration.
And
My
Gemma?
name is, sorry, jump in. My name is Gemma Evans. I also work in a rural setting. I'm a head of sixth form and I teach the management and administration T-level. I do have experience of other T-levels and setting them up and kind of a bit of an overview in general. There are a lot of similarities between them, particularly the way they're assessed, etc. Hopefully I can bring a bit of knowledge for you.
Hello, I'm Sarah. I am from a further education college down on the south coast, in Fareham. I teach I do teach on T levels, but not this one yet because we're not launching until 2023. But I do teach on 3 other T levels, including the accounting one and 2 digital ones.
And lastly, but not least, Amanda.
Hi, I'm Amanda. I teach at the Manchester College. I'm a T-level lead. I've been teaching T-levels since September 2022 with the start of the Management Administration T-level, and it's going really well at our college at the moment, so that's good.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to keep an eye out on the Facebook group and the messages or questions as they come in. Lots of people joining us at the minute. I think Facebook's putting lots of different links up, but it looks like we're up and running. Lots of people joining us live. So please do put your questions or comments or observations into the live chat, and we'll try to cover as many as possible. And we'll also stick some of the questions on the comments on the screen here in that little bit of space underneath the panel. Just starting off, there's been a couple of comments just as we're getting going around the employer set project, or the ESP, I guess we have to summarize it as. Should we start off with ESP? Obviously early days, but the time is running out, as the introduction theme tune suggested, in terms of preparing. Where are we at with that? What's our initial thoughts about the challenges of preparing learners for the first attempt at that? Who wants to start me off?
I don't mind. I'll start.
Go on then, Gemma.
Well, initial thoughts of how it's starting off, I think, is that is exactly it. We've got to do a first run to really understand, get to the nitty gritty. I can see Amanda nodding there. We were both at the City and Guilds, different ones, but both at the City and Guilds network event last week, and it really was helpful to try and understand what the ESP is about. But until we've got through that first run of it, I think there's going to be lots of questions that we have, and so I'm sure we've got really specific questions now, which I hadn't realised before, was that students with extra time had to have it per task. So when they had task 1, their extra time had to be added on to task 1 before moving on to task 2. And I just naively beforehand had read it that they could just have a day or two at the end, have their time bolted onto the end of the employer set project, when actually you've got to work your planning so that you're planning for students with extra time after each task. So it does take us a lot longer. With the help, it's worth collaborating, because with the help of Amanda, I've got my timings down from 3 weeks to 10 school days now, 10 working days. So it just, you need to sit down, you do need to spend time and actually plan just make the assumption that you can run with it. That's one of the differences between any BTEC piece of coursework we've done. Amanda, I don't know if you can add anything to that.
No, I totally agree. I think that's the thing. I think it scares a lot of people that it's 25 hours. It's completely different to something we've done before, and I just think it is a case of definitely collaborating with anybody that you can. Don't try and do it alone, because I think if you can sit down with people and just make sure you've got all your timings down and stuff, it definitely helps. We've got 32 learners all in one class for ours, so ours is around 3 weeks, and that is the minimum that I could get it to. But I guess it depends on cohort and things as well, and it definitely, I've followed for the plan that I did. I followed every bit of City and Guilds advice. So, for example, 1.1, make sure you section it over. Make sure you leave time in between recordings on the presentation and problem-solving collaboration to be able to set up your equipment, and also get as much extra help as you can in the forms of teachers or invigilators that they'll give you at the college or provider to be able to help you with that.
What about you, Poppy? Any first experience, or the first few weeks of trying to get this thing organised or mocked? Have you had a mock yet at all?
We're actually, Gemma and I are from the same setting, and that's what we've been looking at with our students today, just trying to get our heads and their heads as well, I think, around something that's quite different in terms of its structure, in that the tasks need to be completed, finished, hand it, and then you move on to the next one. And I think for us, that's the kind of, not the strange part, but it's slightly different to perhaps what you would find with a BTEC or with any different kind of qualification that we've taught before. So I think for us it's and you know the concept of having to, once you've handed in one task, that's it, it's kind of shut, locked, and then it's move on to the next one. There's no, you can't dip back into it. And I think it's how a students, as naturally as the tasks progress, students are going to have a better grasp of what they could have done in task 1.1 or 1.2 before they've moved on. And I think it's how do they evidence as they move through the ESP that their knowledge is kind of advancing, and how do they evidence that perhaps they could have thought of that earlier throughout the later on tasks. So yeah, it's definitely definitely interesting.
Yeah, and the
Can I just
difficulty with that
sorry,
research. Oh, no, I was going to say the
you go on,
difficulty
you
with the research is working in a school, everything's blocked. So we've had to preempt what they're going to look at to kind of unblock as many websites as possible. So against all school policy, at the minute they've got access to social media, and it's on a trust basis that whilst we're doing our practice research, they are researching, they're not using it, you know, they're not abusing the system, because so many key terms get blocked that to them they just hit a wall and they don't know what to look at next, whereas actually it might be useful information. So that's one of the things we've had to think about, because if it happens in the real thing, they simply don't have time to tell us and us get it unblocked. They've just got to go to the next thing. So to kind of preempt what they're going to look at, which keywords we've got to unblock, and have that ready for them.
Yeah, so I was just going to add, in terms of the reference to the question that we've got in the chat about it being really hard if students miss a session. So what I've done personally is, what I've tried to do is sequence the timings for the group earlier in the day, so that if you do have a student, let's say, for example, they're poorly or they miss a session, that you can potentially do them in the afternoon if it's between 2 and 3 hours, 3.5 hours. If it's one of the 4-hour sessions, then yes, you would have to, it's going to be harder to sequence. But most of the time, I think if you try and schedule things so that you've got a bit of time at the end of the day, you might be able to do something, you know, at the end of another day for them. But if not, then it's a case of waiting quite a bit and doing theirs at a separate time.
Yeah, we've put a couple of extra days in, just broken it up. So there's like 2 or 3 days on, and then a full day where they're not expected in, unless obviously they've missed something earlier in the week, and they have to use that as catch up, because yeah, keeping everyone in line is going to be quite difficult.
Yeah, it is. We've got we've kept a day as well to do that.
So I know you've got some large cohorts at your centre, haven't you? On the other.
Yeah, quite like, not as large as that though, that you've been mentioning there with your 32. We tend to, you know, the largest we have, really, obviously we don't have the business T, but at the moment business BTEC, we tend to have around 20, between 20 and 25 really maximum. Yeah, so our biggest problem is the rooms, and obviously we teach a wide range of subjects, so the issue we're going to have, and I think a lot of colleges will have, and schools probably, is the access to IT when the ESP takes so long, and then we're running, you know, 6 or 7 other T levels all needing access to IT for that length of time, up against all the exams for the people who are still doing BTECs or whatever, and that is logistically going to be very hard next year, I think.
Could they possibly use the SEA fund to fund some extra technology, you know, to be able to use on
Well,
behalf of that?
Well, we were in the phase 1 when we started doing the digital T levels, so we did have a large investment into resources and stuff, and we have some amazing tech rooms. The problem is that we're also teaching UAL games design, and they do a 6-week employer project, so we can't access any of those computers. And then we've got 2 digital T levels using the other rooms that were created for that. So yeah, that is the size of the room, and the access for everyone is going to be very hard, I think.
Yeah.
Another question come in. Also, surprise, we thought it might come out, didn't we, tonight on ESP? So what are your thoughts on this question about managing the discussion of the ESP and the timing of it?
I don't mind going next on this because this is something that like really I had to rack my brains on. In terms of discussion for the ESP, so what I've done, I had to really think about it because you've got 30 minutes where you have to sit and the individual writes notes, and then you've got a 30-minute discussion time, and then they've got the hour and a half where they actually have to do the task. So having thought about it, you can't really have any other groups in the room because if you have anybody else in the room, it'll interrupt the recording and the discussion of whoever is on at that moment. So we are doing 3 groups at a time. So that the group 1, 2, and 3, for example, will come in. They'll do the 30 minutes individual time, 30 minutes discussion with the recording, and then they'll go on and do the hour and a half. And then in the afternoon we'll do that again. So then we'll have 3 groups again, etc., and then repeat that for 2 days, to then 2 or 3 days, however long it was, so that we can go through all the groups that are needed. Every group gets that time, and you've got the chance to set up the recording equipment, and also they can concentrate while they're in class as well.
Yeah, we've gone for a similar approach as staggered. So the one room where they do their preparation work with a different member of staff to where they're going to move to do the discussion, where the camera's already set up, they do their discussion, and then they move away as the next group can move in and but we're only using 2 members of staff, so they then have to evaluate in the same room as the prep room. But yeah, taking the same approach as staggering, but having different staff in different rooms to be able to manage it and try and rotate. But as cohorts grow, that's going to be really difficult. The discussion to be able to facilitate the presentation is going to be difficult as cohorts get bigger, because obviously the presentation, you have to give them a time slot, and you need your questioning after, and to go from one to the other to the other to the other is going to be increasingly difficult.
And where do you stand on invigilating your own students in those kind of things?
It's fine because we're not marking it, are we?
No. So it's medium control. You can, under exam rules, you can invigilate your own exams.
Assessments.
The exams.
The only input from us.
Sorry.
The only input from us are the questions for the presentation. And you just have to make sure it's not leading. That's the question in front of you that you are presenting to the person.
Yeah, I think that just having that, I think that one of the juggling bits of what we've taken Sitting Girls' advice as well, and we're going to put a second member of staff in the room, one to manage the recording equipment and check that and make sure everyone's got name stickers on, that they're reciting all the information that's needed for that, and then the other member of staff asking the questions and recording the answers to the questions, because that's what we were told by Sitting Girls. I think it was the deep dive webinar. They said that they recommended having a second member of staff in with you, so that, because obviously you've got to note down the answers to the questions, and you've also got to make sure it's recording, you can hear them properly, they've got you've got to tell them the name and also the course and everything, the provider, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I can see a comment there about an EHCP student. We have an autistic student in our class, and I think one of the key things is just practice, making them used to what they are doing, getting them comfortable. The groups that they're going to use for their mock are the groups that they're going to use in the real ESP. Just making it almost routine of constantly doing the same thing and using the same rooms if you can.
So I'm just laughing at that comment. I think it's auto-corrected.
Soon afterwards, but I've put the question.
So mature.
That's how I am. But, what are our thoughts on Pope and research?
On Pope. Is that the PID, the project initiation document?
Yeah, PID. Yeah.
No, the plan on a page. It'll be.
Yes. Yeah.
So for that one, when speaking to Sitting Girls, and I know this has been said a lot in your Facebook group, Gemma, just to reiterate what's been said by Dom Green at Sitting Girls, he said you do not need to have a Gantt chart in there unless you want to, or a CPA. The plan on a page, it doesn't have to have a specific format. It needs to be on a spreadsheet, but it's not so much the format of the plan on a page. It's about the content and the understanding that you need to electronically record your project. So I think a lot of people are panicking and thinking about Gantt and CPA and PERTs and all that sort of stuff. And he was saying that's not so much what the concentration should be on. It should be on just getting them, making sure they answer all of what's asked in them. There's 7 or 8 areas, and I had a discussion with him about that, and he just said make sure you're getting all those areas and you're covering all that for your plan on a page.
Any other comments or thoughts on that one? Obviously, it's one of those things where, because the first cohort going through this process, there aren't really established or exemplar parts to the project, aren't there? So it's hard to visualize what it might look like, I guess.
I think that is the difficulty. That there is nothing.
I was just going to say in the sorry, lost my words. In the Sitting Girls PowerPoints, that's the word I'm looking for. In the Sitting Girls PowerPoints, there is actually a brief template for the plan on the page if anybody wants to look in there. So just to point that out. Sorry, Gemma.
No, isn't it on the centre guidance? Is it at the back of there? Is that the one?
I've not seen that one actually. Yeah, there might be.
There is a download. There's a Word document download, isn't there? Which actually extends to the page. So I suppose the plan on the page is slightly misleading.
Yeah, there is. And there's two templates you can use, and one of them's hidden in a document somewhere, and one of them is available to download as a Word document. Page 27. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Of a document. Page 27 of a document.
Well,
there are quite a few to go.
As people have asked, is this session being recorded? Yes, it is. But also, if there are links or things being suggested during the session, we'll make sure we post links into the comments so that the recording on the group also has all the links that are being pointed to, which is great. So thanks for people who are posting links into the live chat. One of the questions that came up on before we started was this whole issue around 25 hours for an ESP. Compared with, say, I don't know what it is. Sorry, you might know, but I hear it's a bit less in some of the other T-level setups. Yeah. What are our thoughts on 25 hours as an accumulated period of effectively controlled assessment?
Yeah, in the accounting ESP, which I'm in right in the throes of, and we're doing a mock next week, it's about 16 hours, I think. So it's substantially lower than what the business one is. And it's annoying, though, in the same respect that they've all got to have an individual slot with recording equipment. So it's, in terms of staffing, I think that's quite hard to get the right number of staff. It must be a logistical nightmare doing the timetable for the business one. Obviously, I haven't got to that one yet, but that must be hard putting that timetable together, I think.
How are your students grappling with this idea of 25 hours worth of assessment and effort? Are there ways in which you can, I suppose we're only discovering it, but are there ways in which we can manage their expectations, keep them going, keep them motivated?
Who's that for? Yeah. Sorry, because mine aren't doing that length yet. I haven't really done the hours.
Mine is
I just sort of drip through.
Yeah, mine are quite scared about the 25 hours. They've basically said that they, I think because it sounds like a lot of time, doesn't it? I think, and just also trying to run mocks, but again, you've got the same logistics. So with the mock, I've been trying fit it in class time, but obviously you have to adapt it. But just I think the thing, making sure that everything they're fully prepared as much as they can be.
We've had a question. I think
ours are scared as well.
About research outcomes. I don't know whether Poppy, you've got any thoughts on that, but I know it was mentioned in one of the previous questions. We were talking about the plan on the page, but also consistency of research outcomes. Anyone got any thoughts on that?
I think the research element of it in itself is, I think, daunting for both the students and for us, because I don't know what other centres experience, but I know certainly where we are that research skills are a real problem. and that in itself is making best use, the most productive use of that time that they get given, is really the foundation of that is them knowing how to go out there and to research. And I think that that's something definitely that we've noticed in teaching the T level from September 22, that research skills are very underdeveloped, and I think something we've tried to get the pupils to practice a lot. But there's definitely, I don't know if it's a maturity thing, or whether or not that's just something perhaps we experience more rurally than in other centres. But I think it's making most productive use of that research time, and also being able to present findings from research in a way that is useful, because ultimately that first task underpins all of the rest of them as well, and the success of the ESP overall. So I think there's we have I don't know what Gemma's opinion is on that from our centre perspective, but definitely that's something that I feel is a worry, and is something that we're grappling with at the moment.
Yeah, research in itself, what they're going to find in 2 hours, is a bit worrying, because when we set them a research task, it takes longer than 2 hours to find anything meaningful, because they expect the first link to give them what they need. And that's not always the case.
Yeah, just to add on that, by the way, just in case anybody doesn't know, there's no cap on the amount of pages that you can do in 1.1. In the actual first bit of 1.1/1, whatever, there's no caps on the amount of pages. So essentially, they could write copy and paste quite a few pages in there and really get their information together for that. So that's something I checked the other day, and I think a few people have like referring to the research summary outcomes table, and again, there isn't any template to go off as far as I know. Gemma and Poppy, do you know any different about any tables to go off? Because so far, I don't think there's been any guidance given on that. I think it is just a case of having the content in there.
Yeah. As long as they're looking at cost benefit, is that the one we're talking about?
Yeah, so the way they've got to do the cost versus benefit analysis, yeah, that one.
Yeah, as long as they've got some evaluation of how useful. So back in the days, it was all reliability and validity. I think now we're talking about cost benefit of how useful it is, and etc. But there was a point you were just making, then it's gone. My internet makes everyone sound like they're underwater at the minute, so I was, it'll come back to me. It was relevant.
I was asking about if there's any template. Sorry, Jim.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. The question was about templates, wasn't it? That was the or the really. How do you? Because I suppose we're limited in terms of how we can help our learners structure their tasks as they do them.
That was it. Amanda had said about there's no limit. So I had the discussion with a learner today. He was asking about printing stuff, and my understanding is that's absolutely fine, because they can't change it when they've moved on from 1.1, but they can have a hard copy to us and we can print it outside of the 2-hour limit is what I understand. And they can also have it back electronically on a PDF. So they can't change it, they can't add to it, they can't alter it at all. That is what's submitted to City and Guilds. But if they want to have a paper version just for clarity on their desk, they can have that, as long as it's a replica of the one that we're sending off. Is that what you understand as well, Amanda?
Yes. So what I understand is, so from what they're saying, that yes, you have to either print it or PDF it at the end of each session, each day that you do whatever session you're doing that day. So yes, that they can't have it back in any other form, so they can't edit it, and that they can't take it home as well. So I know I've been asked that by a few students and other teachers. So at the end of that session, they hand over. So what we're doing personally is getting USB sticks. We've got a USB stick for a learner that will be labelled with their name on it. We'll take that information in. I'll then go away and print everybody's off, and then give it back to them at the session the following day, because they are, like you said, they are allowed the notes there in front of them. And then I think printing it seems like the most logical thing, because to sit there PDF-ing documents forevermore is going to be quite a long task, I think.
Yeah, I recommend there's a question. Word and website and date, and just copy and paste into Word, so they've got their reference and it's one document.
Yeah, because after that first bit, they're not allowed the internet, are they? After the very first section. Just there's a question here about it being a fictional business, and it's quite funny that somebody's asked that, because my students, being the curious minds that they are, were actually went researching other businesses to see if it was identical to a business online. And one of my students found, is it the EduSmart or whatever it's called? I can't remember the name of the sample one.
Educate
And yes, something like that. Yeah, educate growth. That's it. And one of my students, he's really inquisitive. Like he thinks he's found an identical business online that's been modelled on the scenarios. Whether whether that's the case, I don't know. I've not asked, but yeah, who knows?
But is it going to be a fictional business? Can we? What do we know? What are the knowns in terms of what gets released later this month?
They've not really
I've
said.
seen-
I don't know. Yeah.
They've not really used real businesses even in the exams, have they? It's a bit vague what the businesses are. So I don't think they're going. Yeah, I think I would assume, but it is an assumption. It's a fictional business.
Yeah, when I was writing the T-level resource improvement project through the ETF, we had to make sure we used fictional businesses. So we had so I wrote the AO2 and AO3 questions, exact like formative assessment questions that went through quality checks from DFE, AOC, and ETF. They said do not use anything that models like a real business, because obviously you've got all the intellectual property side of things, and also then so you had to make sure it was completely made up. So I don't know if it's the same thing.
Yeah, someone's put here about printing won't be any use because they need parts. But you could have both. You could have the PDF, and you could have physically paper in front of them, so that you're, because if they've got one screen opposed to two or three, Jules, they've got it on paper to flick through and find the chart if they need it.
Question coming in also about timing. About, I suppose, in an ideal world, you could always rewind the clock and do things slightly differently this time, but maybe thinking ahead to the November resit or the next sitting and this time next year. Also, what are your thoughts on the release date in the first week of Easter? Do you think that's going to create some issues for schools in terms of giving students enough time to tackle and complete the ESP, or do you think we've got enough time?
No, it's fine. There's plenty of time. I mean, it comes out on the 27th to teachers, and students can't have it until, I believe it's Lincolnshire's first day of the Easter holidays. Everyone's got different Easter holidays. So we come back, and then we've got a training day. So that's your first Monday out. Our students don't usually come in on a Tuesday. So we've missed that Tuesday just in case they forget after not seeing us for 2 weeks. So we haven't started until that Wednesday. But actually, when you look at it, we've then got May bank holiday, we've got the Coronation bank holiday, and yeah, it needs to be uploaded on the 12th. There's plenty of time this year with lots of things going on in the way. So no, they've given us a 6-week window, and I think that's fine. In regards to this mock, we did our mock on the week after half term, so maybe the 21st of February, whatever that week was. We had a mock. We had the full replica, so a 5-hour mock in 2 halves, and then we looked at where that went wrong the following week of helping them with the mock and their content and knowledge, and now we've moved on to the ESP, and I think we've got enough time. I don't think you do. Yeah, full 4 weeks is ideal, but doing your mock after February half term and giving them that time to do their own personal revision, which they've got to get used to anyway, it's worked out fine time wise.
Yeah, ours has been very similar in terms of the mock, and we've just done. So what I did is I ran it the week after we got back after half term, one exam, and then last week we did the second exam. And like we said, we did start running the mock ESP, but we're having to do that in sections because I didn't want to take 3 weeks away from the timetabling before we finished delivery, because I thought it might be too much of a big gap. So that's what I was originally going to do. I was going to run a full mock and take them off timetable, etc. But I thought to take that time away now when they need it and we're just wrapping up might be too much. So we decided. So I've decided just to do it in bits basically and just do it. They've been doing mini mocks. My colleague has been doing some amazing mini mocks with them since like October, and where they've had like various amounts of times to do ESP, and they've taken really well to doing the research and all the other stuff that comes along with that.
Anything else to add on that one in terms of your students, how they're how they're grappling with the mock and whether they feel as though they're getting.
It was weird. Some of them said it was really easy, and then others said it was really hard when they got to the 12 markers. I think the fact that I do think it is a blessing that it does start with AO1 questions and it goes
Yeah.
from easier to harder, because it sort of builds them up into, confidence wise as they're writing through the exam. But I think because there is 3 or 4 questions at the end, it's quite a lot of writing. Advising them to try some of those first might be a better idea.
Yeah, someone's put here about marking robustly. We also teach A-level, so we just looked at it as an A-level paper and marked in that vein. But then we used the grade boundaries from the construction exam last year, and obviously they're a lot lower. They're saying they're a lot lower than they will be this summer. So it's a catch-22, isn't it? You can tell your students you've done really badly and they lose morale, they lose that boost that they need. Or you can say, right, based on last year, which may be a bit more lenient, you've got an A or a B. And that, to us, they were really pleasing results. And we went on those grade that was attributed to the last summer, but they also do know they were favourable. So they have got to, they've got to push themselves to be able to achieve that in June. But it is hard without any of the material. It really is. But if you just need to use your experience a little bit to kind of work with what we already know. What would you grade it as? Because they are the equivalent. At the end of the day, it is the equivalent of A-level. And I know it's only year 1, but this is these are the exams, aren't they? So you've got to look at it in that way.
Maybe the problem might be for those teachers transitioning who don't teach A-level.
Yeah.
So they're not used to that graded marking so much.
I've come from BTEC, and so I'm not used to teaching A-level. And I mean, I've done exams quite a few times and got quite good grades out of it. But it has been a bit of a transition period. I think adapting to the way that an A-level works, and also I think the way you teach it is so different as well. And also I don't know about what everyone else thinks, but the content on the T-level M&A or any other T-levels, I'm not sure if it's the same, but some of it seems like level 4 rather than level 3.
Oh, definitely.
As well.
Definitely. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, fully agree with that. But I have heard that of the other T-levels as well. That some of them apparently are being reviewed for, not ours, but some of them are being reviewed for next year because some of the content has been seen as too difficult. We're asking a little bit too much of them.
Yeah,
not
I've
ours
had
yet,
to seek that. Yeah, well, we'll see what happens, don't we? But I know I've had to, when looking at resources, trying to find stuff, you do have to then go onto like your undergrad stuff or wherever to try and look at some of the stuff that they've got there to make it like accurate for what you're trying to teach.
And we're talking about 16, 17-year-olds, aren't we? Effectively the AS or the year 12 audience. So quite a stretch.
Yeah.
We've got about...
And we're asking them for many skills that they don't have. So...
We've got 2 minutes left because I think we're aiming for about 40 minutes. So I was just thinking this has been really useful. I'm keeping an eye on the lots of questions and observations coming in. So we'll keep adding those to the screen. But I just thought maybe just to finish off, just an observation from each of you as to how it's going. How you're finding it as a teaching colleague or as a department delivering it. Any lessons learned or tips that you might want to give to people who may be musing or more than musing on delivering the specification of the qual from September. Obviously, we can revisit this in subsequent discussions as well. But if it comes to mind that we can capture as being a little gold nugget of advice, this is a good time to do it. I don't know who wants to make a start.
I don't mind starting.
I don't mind.
Ours be confident. Just be confident with what you're doing. You've got to do it wholeheartedly. So you've got to just throw yourself in and just remember you can do it. So we're from a rural sixth form, the most unlikely place to do a T-level, and it is working really well. The students have embraced it. The staff have embraced it. We have learned so much more. So for that have been in the industry for a long time, it's nice to have that change. And there's so much CPD that's available. There's so much, learning new theory ourselves to pass on. It's not the same as we've done before, which can be seen as a negative, but on the plus side, it just keeps us busy, doesn't it? It keeps us thinking, it keeps us growing, and I really enjoy teaching it, and I like the variety that they've asked us to have in there. There are bits missing, of course, but they've added other bits in place of it.
Poppy, you were nodding your head there. Is that a similar experience? Not just because
Yeah,
you're part.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think it's in terms of to achieve, which is an industry-based qual that gets pupils ready for real business life and an actual readiness to go out the other side of level 3 and have a meaningful place within an organisation. I think that the T level does in that sense. It's totally different to anything that we've delivered before in a very practical business ready type of a sense. It's not not like the A level or like the BTEC course. Really, it is quite unique. But I think because of that, I think it's a really good course for the learners. They enjoy it because I think it's right from day one. I think they understand we're doing this course and this is why it's important, and this is actually getting me ready for that position that I see myself having in the future. Whereas perhaps some of the other courses don't deliver that as much as T level does. I think that's one of the real bonuses I've found teaching the T level. It really easy to get themselves in the mindset of doing the work placement and doing the ESP and where that leads to in the future. And I think the content, from a content perspective, I do think that the stuff that we're delivering is very practical for, like I said, learners to progress into workplace roles. So in that sense, really loving delivering it. It is a challenge at times. Because there are things that aren't covered in the A level. They're not. We teach A level, but we also teach the BTEC business course. There's things that aren't in either and haven't featured perhaps in our learning since university. So it is sometimes you come across things and you think, right, wow, that is really sophisticated. And I think somebody said something about some of the stuff being more pitched at level 4, and I think Gemma and I have definitely had discussions around of the T level and how we can make that accessible as well at times to some of our learners who are with level 3 entry requirements. So yeah, but it's a challenge, but the course, I don't think we have anything other than positive things to say about it, and I think we're growing in confidence with it, and yeah, like Gemma just said, you go confidently into it and enjoy.
What's your experience, Sarah?
Yeah, that's great.
The digital pathways there, months in.
Well, we've been doing T levels now for 2 years, so I mean, obviously it's been a massive learning curve from year 1 to now. I'm happy I'm not doing business until next year, so I can get the benefit of everyone else doing it this year. I think that's a bonus for me, particularly in the lack of resources that are available, particularly around the ESP, because I think lots of us have taught to exams, but the ESP is the one that's so different, and it's a learning curve for all of us. And I think sometimes it's just hard for the teachers as well. I spend quite a lot of time sort of helping people who are not used to teaching to exams, having to adapt their teaching to be able to do that. So obviously, if you've taught A levels, it really, really helps. So I have found that quite useful, the fact that we made the transition for the BTEC over to 2016 spec in 2016. So I think that's definitely helped when I see other subjects who went from a 2010 spec into a T level. That's been tough for them, really tough. So yeah, I think what I really like about T levels is the holistic approach. It's so much more realistic than looking at everything in a modular way, because that just doesn't happen in life like that, does it? So it's quite similar to the year 2 BTEC units where you teach really holistically. I love those units, and so I think I will enjoy teaching the T level for the same reason, I think.
Fantastic. Amanda, do you want to finish this session off with your observations?
Just totally in agreement with Poppy and Gemma, really. really enjoying it, enjoying the fact that you can teach modular aspects and holistic aspects, and also that it does seem to prepare them really well for work like industry placements, for higher education, and also if they wanted to do a degree apprenticeship or go straight into employment. The content is actually really interesting, and I think a lot of people out there are a bit hesitant or skeptical about T level, but it does seem to be something fresh and new that is really enjoyable once you get into it.
Fantastic. Well, 40 minutes have elapsed. And, well, for Gemma, 39 minutes, because she disappeared for a minute whilst your internet was... You'll have to stay behind Gemma for two extra minutes. But
I'm
anyway,
okay with that.
a really, really great discussion. And as always, a big thanks to everybody who's added their thoughts and questions and observations into the live chat on the Facebook group. People have been asking, is it recorded? Yes, it is. And I'll also make proper refined recording available, which edits out some of the gaps and things, so that you'll be able to watch this at your leisure. And any links or other things that have been suggested during the session, during the discussion, we'll post them onto the comments as well. I think we're aiming to make this type of discussion as regular as possible, particularly as we approach core paper 1 and paper 2, and get the employer set project out of the way for this term. And also maybe having a think about centres who are planning now for launching T-level M&A for their September cohort. So maybe we could have a session around the practicalities of that, particularly learning from those who've been there and done it in this year. So anyway, if you found it useful, please do add your comments and observations into the group, and we'll use those to plan the next session. But for now,
Can I just add something, Jim?
Go for it. Yeah.
Somebody's put in the comments about planning for resources for T level. Confirm that we are working on those, and that if people have got requests of the kind of things that they want, then maybe put it on the Facebook page that Gemma runs. Would be useful, wouldn't it, Gemma?
Yes, yeah, very much so. Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? But they are there. They're in production.
Yes, definitely on their way.
Yeah, and I highly recommend the Facebook group as a means. As someone is suggesting here, there's the strength in numbers in terms of a group of people. Perhaps then going to C&G with maybe initially a list of things to be clarified. I know it's already happened in a couple of occasions, which have been really useful. So this is the time to ask, isn't it? And ask for clarification and all that kind of stuff. Now, and so huge thanks to our panel and to everybody who's joined in. Hopefully we'll catch you on the Facebook group. If not, we'll catch you on the next Talking T-levels for Management and Administration. So for now, from all of us, thanks very much. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.